Hello, my name is Russell Feldhausen, and it is my honor to serve as the Vice President of the All Souls Board of Trustees. As required by Article 4 of our Constitution, we must hold an annual meeting of our society in May each year. This year's annual meeting will be Sunday, May 17th at 1 o'clock p.m. The meeting itself will be held online using Zoom, the same software we use for our coffee and conversation sessions throughout the week. Since we are using Zoom, you'll be able to attend that meeting from home using a computer, tablet, or smartphone, or you can even call in using a regular telephone. The purpose of that meeting will be to adopt an annual budget and elect incoming members of the Board of Trustees and various church committees. We have chosen to postpone several other agenda items to a special meeting to be called later this year when we may meet again in person. You can find more information about the annual meeting, including the agenda and a proposed annual budget, in our church newsletter, on the website, or by contacting the church or any board member. We hope to see you there.
Good morning, and welcome to worship at All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in Kansas City, Missouri. Whoever you are and wherever you are welcome here. My name is Rebecca Gant, and I am the intern minister here at All Souls for only a few more weeks. I would like to share some good news with you at this moment. That last Sunday, I was officially called to be the new senior minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bloomington Normal, Illinois. I am thrilled to have this new opportunity to live out my calling in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. My last time with you will be my ordination on May 30th at 10 a.m. You can attend the ordination by following the same link that you used to get to this service. Even though we won't be together in person, I think it will be a wonderful celebration. I hope to see you there. Another event you might be interested in tuning in for is graduation at Meadville Lombard at 3 p.m. on May 17th. A tiny silver lining, and really it's only a sliver of silver, of missing out on an in-person event is that more people can attend without needing to leave their homes. You can watch the live stream if you're interested by going to the meadville.edu website and searching for commencement. Once my internship here ends on June 1st, I'll be focusing my energy on moving and preparing to lead that congregation. I will miss all of you, and I want to express my gratitude for your opening your hearts and your minds to me, for all that you've taught me about leadership, and for working with me to make the Warming Center happen these past 2 winters. I look forward to watching from afar as this congregation continues to put its values into action with folks in the community who are struggling to meet their food and housing needs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today is Mother's Day. Mother's Day is joyful for some of us, and it is difficult for others. I want to celebrate today all who have nurtured us in our lives, whether they were our biological parent or not. It is a great gift to nurture a child, to give them the love and the support that they need to thrive. If you are one of those nurturers, thank you. If you have been nurtured by another, if possible, I hope you'll find a way today to express your gratitude and let them know how their loving attention shaped you. And whether that person is no longer living or still lives, I hope you'll find a way to pass along the nurture that you have received. And now let us begin our worship by singing together our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
It is our tradition to light a chalice at the beginning of worship. If you have a chalice or a candle with you, I invite you to join me and light that flame where you are. If you don't, you can always make a lighted chalice with your hands, like this, and light the flame. We'll light this chalice this morning for nurturers. May we know them, may we appreciate them, may we be them. I invite you also to type in a comment and say where you are participating. We'll pause for a moment and watch to see where else the chalice is lit this morning. Please join in saying the words of our covenant. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now settle in for a bedtime story called The Great Realization. The poet and performer in this video is someone who has imagined what it might be like following this year of COVID-19, what it might do to us as a community and a society when we learn maybe some lessons from this time together.
Tell me the one about the virus again, then I'll go to bed.
But my boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favourite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell. It was a world of waste and wonder, of poverty and plenty, back before we understood why hindsight's 2020. You see, the people came up with companies to trade across all lands, but they swelled and got much bigger than we ever could have planned. We'd always had our wants, but now it got so quick. You could have anything you dreamed of in a day, and with a click. We noticed families had stopped talking. That's not to say they never spoke, but the meaning must have melted, and the work-life balance broke. And the children's eyes grew squarer, and every toddler had a phone. They filtered out the imperfections, but amidst the noise, they felt alone. And every day the skies grew thicker, till you couldn't see the stars. So we flew in planes to find them, while down below, we filled our cars. We'd drive around all day in circles. We'd forgotten how to run. We swapped the grass for tarmac, shrunk the parks till there were none. We filled the sea with plastic, because our waste was never capped, until each day when you went fishing you'd pull them out, already wrapped. And while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why. It's best to not upset the lobbies, more convenient to die. But then in 2020, a new virus came our way. The governments reacted and told us all to hide away. But while we all were hidden, amidst the fear and all the while, the people dusted off their instincts. They remembered how to smile. They started clapping to say thank you and calling up their mums. And while the car keys gathered dust, they would look forward to their runs. And with the skies less full of voyagers, the earth began to breathe, and the beaches bore new wildlife that scuttled off into the seas. Some people started dancing, some were singing, some were baking. We'd grown so used to bad news, but some good news was in the making. And so when we found the cure, and were allowed to go outside, we all preferred the world we found to the one we'd left behind. Old habits became extinct, and they made way for the new, and every simple act of kindness was now given its due.
But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together?
Well, sometimes you've got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Now lie down and dream of tomorrow, and all the things that we can do. And who knows, if you dream hard enough, maybe some of them will come true. We now call it the Great Realization. And yes, since then there have been many. But that's the story of how it started, and why hindsight's 2020.
Because if you look at the camera, they know someone's filming it because they can see you.
Exactly. If you look at the camera, they know someone's filming it. Okay, lie back down.
Wait, can I just practice right now?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm Bill Rainey. I have no doubt in this unusual time of change and stress that our communities are the safety net that separate us from the chasm. As in any time of change, we can't rely on our normal support community. People move, in-person meetings are declared unsafe, sometimes someone who used to be a friend no longer is. As our intern minister Rebecca Gant once said, new ways of being can be difficult, even when we plan for them. because growth means change, and change means losing the way things are. But new sources of support are always there if you search hard enough and listen. Virtual church, for example, or the guy in Australia who wants to play you in chess all the time in the middle of the night. I don't think he knows it's the middle of the night. 2 years ago, I joined a new support community at All Souls, Rebecca's intern minister committee. Although the members of the committee changed over 2 years, its purpose did not: to act as a sounding board and safe place to someone who is going through immense change, career and geographic, and personal trauma in her family. I hope Anita, Lamar, Jane, Claudine, Beth, Alan, John, and I gave her that. I certainly saw her confidence grow as her projects flourished, her sermons gained strength, and eventually she was called to become a minister in Illinois. And I want her to know this was not a one-way street. I feel much more a member of the community to have her and the other members as friends, as well as to be a more active Unitarian Universalist. Change can be difficult in another way, of course. It can be painful. My mom is in her early 70s and has been socially distancing like most of us. She is a people person, and last night she told me she misses human touch. She just wants a hug. We had to have a virtual hug. I'm sure many of you are going through similar things right now, and that makes this community all the more important. So I'd like to ask you 2 things in closing. First, can you please take a second and give a virtual hug to someone who might need it? Second, can you write a check or send a payment to All Souls to keep virtual and eventually in-person church going? This, our vital source of community. The offering will now be received.
Last night I heard a wood thrush calling. In the evening like they sing, I saw you standing by the water, out on the brink of everything, on the brink of everything. Yeah, all the things that used to matter, no, they don't mean so much today. Toss the seeds and let them scatter. The birds and wind take them away, till there is nothing in my way. This has been too much and little, the ache of it bewildering. But for now we'll stand together, here on the brink of everything, here on the brink of everything. I can't see past this horizon, no, I can't see what's waiting there. I never sang 'cause I knew something, I sang because it was a finest one that I could bear. This has been too much and little, the ache of it bewildering. But for now we'll stand together, here on the brink of everything, here on the brink of everything. This body has been many things. It's been rain and snow and earth and dust. I've worked and worried, searched and hurried. but now it's just forgiveness. Now it's all forgiveness. I'll walk with you as far as I can, and all we love is all we'll take. I'll send a postcard when I get there, just to say I got there safe, just to say I got there safe. And I won't need no choir of angels, just that old song we used to sing. But for now we'll stand and wonder, here on the brink of everything, here on the brink of everything.
Good morning. The reading I am here to share with you is called The Becoming of Our World, Our Hearts, by Reverend Teresa I. Soto. I can see you and feel you grieving over the world that used to be, the times, places, and events, but mostly the people you had hoped to be near, to breathe without penalty of danger, death, for the lives we were meaning to live, while the ones allotted to us we also lived. That sacred gap, both hope and disappointment. For how hard things are, and by hard, I mean unpredictable and uncertain. It may be true that the lives we imagined were not certain, but they gave us a map of what to expect. And now things feel much flatter, and you are wondering if you have sailed off the edge. You have not. But we are becoming the edge of what we know. Pema Chodron calls this groundlessness, when we are in the moment, facing dragons, unknowns, in the now, and now, and now, and no reference to the past, and no inkling of the future. We will need to hold the grief we share loosely, like a river rushing by. There is no resisting, as we grieve the groundlessness itself. Your heart is telling you the truth. Your grief is real and reasonable. One day it will be past, but that is not today. It is not for weeks to come. We have been each other's magnitude and bond. Let us now be each other's witness and each other's ground.
The Trough by Judy Brown. There is a trough in waves, a low spot where horizon disappears, and only sky and water are our company. And there we lose our way, unless we rest, knowing the wave will bring us to its crest again. There we may drown, if we let fear hold us in its grip, and shake us side to side, and leave us flailing, torn, disoriented. But if we rest there, in the trough, in silence, being in the low part of the wave, keeping our energy, and noticing the shape of things, the flow, then time alone will bring us to another place where we can see horizon, see land again, regain our sense of where we are and where we need to swim.
A couple of weeks ago, I drove to All Souls from my home in Lawrence. I was headed to the church to gather my things from my desk in Kendall's office and to say goodbye to the place. I checked in with the other staff to be sure there would not be anyone else in the building before I came for safety's sake. As I walked up the sidewalk, I noticed that nearly all of the glass in the double doors was covered with printer paper taped together. "Our building is closed," the sign reads, "but the church is open and meeting online." Signs like this one that basically say the church has left the building are on the doors of churches and temples and mosques around the world. We know that this abrupt closing of our buildings and our reconstituting of our gatherings online will have an impact on our faith communities. But the question is, what will that impact be? Last week, I took part in 3 Zoom gatherings of Unitarian Universalist ministers who want to talk about what this moment means for our congregations and our denomination. We're reflecting on what comes next. Now that we've tried doing church without being physically together, what have we learned from that experience? Once we're in person again, what is worth reviving from the time before coronavirus? What from our former times could we do without? Are there new ways of being together that we might bring into our in-person gatherings from this time of physical distancing? The conversation with colleagues was interesting and enlivening, and it was also frustrating, mostly because so much about what comes next is unknown. The change from meeting in person to being safer at home was rapid, and predicting what might not come next in this changing environment is difficult. We can remember the before COVID-19 times, and we can try to imagine the after COVID-19 times, but right now we are stuck in the during, with no clue to how long this will go on or what the ramifications might be. Some experts say that it could go on for up to 2 years. We have questions like, will the social distancing efforts continue to pay off? Will businesses get the financial support they need to stay afloat? We just don't know. Reverend Teresa Soto says in the poem that Keeley read earlier, "It may be true that the lives we imagined were not certain, but they gave us a map of what to expect. And now things feel much flatter and you are wondering if you have sailed off the edge. You have not, but we are coming to the edge of what we know." Plans to reopen businesses in Kansas came out last week. Governor Laura Kelly has framed it as a reopening in 4 phases. Each phase is assigned a date that indicates the earliest day it might begin. The only beginning date that we know for sure is May 4th, Monday, when Phase 1 began. On May 4th, childcare facilities and libraries were allowed to open, and gatherings of people who do not live together are allowed, although they must be gatherings of 10 people or fewer. Providing certain benchmarks about numbers of new infections and hospitalizations are met, Phase 2 will begin in 2 weeks, with more types of businesses allowed to open. Then about 2 weeks later, Phase 3, again assuming benchmarks are met. I think it's a common sense plan, although I would prefer my imaginary plan in which we are all frozen in time until a vaccine is discovered and administered to everyone. I worry that in this reopening, people will let down their guard about the measures that help slow the spread of the virus, and that we will lose people who might otherwise have survived. I worry that in the rush to return to business as usual, we'll forget some of the lessons that we're learning, like how nice it is to check in on one another, and how washing your hands and wearing a mask is a way to express your love for yourself and for others around you. And I worry that in the stress and in the confusion, the openings and the shutdowns, that the injustices being made apparent by the uneven effects of this public health crisis will be ignored. We are here hovering in these anxious during times, stalled above the threshold that divides the before time and the after time. No one knows when the benchmarks that Governor Kelly set will be met, and we will be allowed to move ahead to the next phase of our new normal. And no one knows if we might have to go back a phase if infections or hospitalizations increase sharply, or when. And we don't know how long we'll be in the reopen and shut down cycle, although it is likely it will continue for a long time. Opinion writer Charlie Warzel wrote the following in a recent column in the New York Times. "We seem stuck in limbo," he wrote, "somewhere between a dismal reality with a resilient deadly virus and a wishful future in which we claw back normalcy by sheer force of will. Little about the current moment seems to make sense, a fact not many in charge appear willing to acknowledge. For example, what does it mean to reopen the economy if a majority still don't feel comfortable participating in it? It's foolish to ignore the risks of infection, and equally impossible to ignore the risks of income loss for millions as cases drop." Usually, in our lives, when we approach a moment that divides our before from our after, we have some idea about what's on the other side. We know that after crossing the threshold, we'll be different, and we can guess some of the ways that will manifest. For this crisis, however, we don't yet know how this will change us. We don't know how a post-COVID world will look. All we know for sure is that it won't look like the pre-COVID world. Judy Brown's poem, "The Trough," that Dawn read earlier, describes this place of waiting. We're in what the poet describes as the low part or the trough of the wave, where the horizon has disappeared. She says, "And there we lose our way, unless we rest, knowing the wave will bring us to its crest again." Here in this space in between the pre and the post-COVID world, it would be easy to lose our way, to rush things, to try to swim before we can see our way clear. It would be easy to forget our commitments to justice, to ignore the fact that people of color are dying in greater numbers than white people, to ignore that the essential workers who are making sure we are fed and safe and that our health is cared for are often not compensated fairly and are taken for granted. "We could lose our way unless we rest," says the poet. "We could lose our way if we don't take time to center in our values and find ways to build our strength." The poet continues, saying that there in the trough we may drown if we let fear hold us in its grip and shake us side to side. Fear has that disorienting effect on us. Fear makes us see otherness in the people we encounter instead of seeing their kinship. It makes us forget that we know how to keep our heads above water. But if we rest there in the trough, she says, keeping our energy and noticing the shape of things and the flow, then we will rise back to the crest of the wave where we can see the horizon and, quote, regain our sense of where we are and where we need to swim. We are invited here in this trough, or if you prefer, this hovering over the threshold moment, to consider what the world and our lives and the church will be like once we find a way to neutralize the novel coronavirus. But we don't have to wait until everything is resolved at some unknown time in the future. We're invited to dream now about what kind of world we would like to help create. What injustices could we have an effect on right now? What structures need to be built? We're invited to accompany one another now along our path. What connections could you strengthen today with a text or a phone call? Is there someone you are grateful for that you could send a note to? We are invited to give of ourselves now and bring hope to a hurting world. Where can your time and talents and treasure make a difference? We are invited. May we find the way together to respond faithfully to this moment in time. May it be so. And now will you please join me in singing hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. When I came to All Souls last week to pick up my belongings, I was not expecting it to be an emotional experience. But seeing that building empty, looking at Kendall's desk from my desk in the office, and knowing that I would never be there again as we were, was more difficult than I had imagined. I'm still your intern, at least for a few more weeks, but the way that I had been physically among you all and learning from you has ended. While I was there in the building at All Souls, I took some time to really feel my gratitude for your generosity. I walked through the building, Conover, Bragg, the RE hallway. It was weird to be there alone and to know that the church was still open. Because you were all still there, you're just in your homes instead of gathering at church. Those memories and my gratitude cannot be extinguished by a virus. And neither can the light of reason, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. For these we all carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual words
Thanks to everyone who was part of this service today, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I would like to end with my personal thanks to Rebecca for all that she has contributed to our congregation during the past 2 years. It has been a joy to serve with her and learn with her and have her help in the work of ministry here. I'm delighted that she has been called to serve our UU congregation in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, and I look forward to having her as an active colleague. It has truly been a wonderful journey together, a journey that will continue now in other forms. I invite you to join us in 3 weeks for Rebecca's online ordination to the Unitarian Universalist ministry, which will take place on Saturday, May 30th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Our congregation will be joined by the UU Fellowship of Lawrence, Rebecca's home church, as well as representatives from the church where she will begin work in August. Although we would have loved for this to be an in-person event, it is more important that we continue to stay safe from infection. So we will have an innovative but no less authentic ordination service online. I hope you can be there. Also, don't forget the annual congregational meeting, which will begin at 1 o'clock following next week's service. We need to approve a budget and new board members as we prepare to move forward into the coming fiscal year. We hope that our voting members will plan to be present. Our worship service will begin at 11:15 as usual. Everyone is welcome as we consider the challenges of change and how our lives and our institutions can thrive in their midst. Finally, for now, you can join us next at our virtual coffee and conversation social hour by following the directions that come up on the screen or the links found on our website homepage. Please, everyone, stay safe and be well this week.